We be live. We are live. Okay, there's a delay. I was getting all my references and everything ready, but so I got distracted. Sorry,
Studying, and then we're like, oh, wait a second.
guys. We're going to do an analysis of all the arguments for and against Muhammad's existence from a non-Islamic perspective, because from an Islamic perspective, like, why is there? Well, here you don't even need any proof. God reveals it in the Quran. So God says so. So that's it. That's end of conversation.
Got him.
God says so, right? So there you go. So Islamic perspective, yeah, of course, all of it is the verbatim word of God. How dare you doubt any of this? That's it. So that's the Islamic
Heresy.
Heresy, yeah.
Heresy.
So from that, now that we got the Islamic perspective out of the way, let's spend the rest of the video do not the independent from Islamic arguments for and against by arguments that have been made. Actually, the video that we're going to use for reference is by a Muslim. But it's by a Muslim who I think is genuinely more of a history buff than a Muslim, who's genuinely trying to look at everything objectively, even though he's a Sunni Muslim. That could be argued. Anyway, no, I'm not going to attack fear. Yes. So... yeah, so we're gonna go over every single point that makes it seem like Muhammad was real, and every single point that makes it seem Muhammad was made up. Okay, and you guys could judge based on all of this, right? Before we do that, I must say that the live streams that we're gonna schedule after this one is going to be scheduled on my personal channel. Link to my personal channel is in the description because this channel has been demonetized. Why? For hateful conduct, apparently. Which video? they didn't tell us.
Yeah.
So we are able to reapply again in a month, and then the approval process might also take a few months. But while we go through we don't know if we're going to get reapproved or not. But while we go through that, future live streams on my personal channel, you could either search for Armin Navabi channel, like filter channel, and then find my channel, or you could just look in the link in the description. So make sure you subscribe to that. We'll schedule future live streams on that channel. Anyways, let's get back to... another thing I have to announce that tomorrow, same time that we started this live stream, there's a live stream scheduled for patrons of the Secular Jihadist podcast with Abdullah Samir.
No, it's Abdullah Gondal.
Sorry, Abdullah Gondal. I keep confusing the Abdullahs. Which we're going to be discussing... whether Muhammad can we be like sympathetic to the character of Muhammad, whether he was real or not, given the time that he was living in, right?
Well, it's more controversial than that.
You know more about.
Is he fallible?
Is he fallible? Yeah. Wait, really? Okay, so we're gonna look at Muhammad from a non-Islamic perspective. Like we're gonna just basically judge Muhammad not as whether he was perfect or a prophet. We're gonna even if he wasn't real, that character at that time, can we be sympathetic to that character given the time that he was in, right? So we're gonna look at it from an objective perspective. This is going to be live stream for Secular Jihadist patrons tomorrow. If you're not subscribed to the Secular Jihadist YouTube channel, just search for Secular Jihadist, you can find it. But this live stream is going to be only for the patrons. It will be released on the channel later on, the audio format of it.
Patrons get to be in the live chat. They get to interact with the guest, ask questions, and you get the video version and the entire backlog.
Yes. All the other live streams as well. You get access to that. Anyways, so just that announcement. But before now that we want to talk about Muhammad, let's talk about this topic, whether he was real or not. We have to first...
is posting the link to Armin's personal channel in the live
chat.
You're literally best mod ever.
The best mod ever. Yes, thank you.
So, guys, this is where you're going to find us on streams from now on.
Right. Until further notice.
Inshallah. We get our monetization back.
Wait, do you want to show people, do you want to show people what you're wearing, given that the topic of this? Hold on, let me.
Oh, it's that time?
Yes, that's.
This is my Allah's gay shirt. Yay!
Okay, cool. But wait,
yes, you can.
There we go. That's better.
Links to our merch also below. You can get this on our site. Not only on shirts. They have it on mugs, phone cases, like pretty much anything.
We made a mistake. We wanted to Muslims to watch this as well. I think we lost all our Muslim audience now. Damn.
Oh, I mean, I can go change.
I think we already lost them. Damn it. We made a mistake. Anyways, okay. So when we want to talk about whether Muhammad was real or not, I know this is gonna sound like a stupid question, but it's not. Okay. When we say, did Muhammad exist? The first question is, what do you mean by Muhammad? This sounds like a dumb question, okay? But it's very important to answer this, okay? Because if by my answer right now, okay, is if by Muhammad you mean the Muhammad as described by how he has been canonized in Islam, the Muhammad of the Sunnah, the Muhammad of the Quran, the Muhammad of the hadith. If you're saying if that Muhammad existed, then my answer is probably not. Very, 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 very unlikely. Okay? But if you ask me, was there a dude? We're not even going to, not even specifically, we're not going to say in Arabia, modern day in Saudi Arabia, somewhere in the Middle East, with a name that we're not even sure if his name was Muhammad. Dude had a name. He was a guy. We can say he was Arab. We don't know if he was in Arabia. We don't know if his name was Muhammad. But he led the Arabs out of that region somewhere and took, the people that came after him, took down the Persian Empire and defeated and attacked the Byzantines even during his time. Was that person real? Then my answer to that is probably yes.
So you're making the distinction that people often make with Christ is the existence of a historical Jesus versus a mythical Jesus.
Yeah, but even worse than that, because this Muhammad that I'm defending for his existence, we don't even know if his name was Muhammad. I think with the Jesus one, we at least know the Jesus that most scholars agree existed, even though they don't agree that the stories about him, any of it is true, or that we know that is true. They at least know, okay, he was crucified. They know about that. I mean, probably. And that his name was Josiah or something like that, right? But and that he probably rebelled against the authorities, and the Romans were like, well, we'll have none of that. And that's pretty much, and and also, actually, no, they know a lot more about that, because they also seem to be somewhat confident about some of his basic beliefs, whoever that guy was. Okay? Somewhat confident. But when it comes to this guy, this Muhammad, a proto-Muhammad guy, there's very, very little that we could be confident about. We don't even know, but Jesus, his whereabouts is pretty almost certain where he came out of, right? With this Muhammad dude, if his name was even Muhammad, we're almost sure that he wasn't born where Muslims think he was born, if he was real. We're almost sure not only he was not in Mecca, he wasn't even in Arabia, like the Saudi Arabia. Like it's now almost okay. So a lot of people throw out the name Petra, and that's like the number one candidate for where he was born, if he was born, if this is if he was real, and if a lot of people are throwing Petra around, but even the people who are Petra skeptic as a city instead of Mecca, a lot of people that are like, well, we're not sure it's Petra. There seem to be the scholars at least, pretty confident that it was up there, like way north of Mecca. Almost definitely not Mecca, but way up north there. Maybe Petra, maybe not. Okay, but go on.
Because I don't know very much about this topic, is the main one of the main distinctions, for lack of a better word, that the Arabs didn't keep records in the same way that the Romans did. Like we just
we get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, so now we'll get to the arguments for and against them. But before we do that, I just wanted to let you guys know what do we even mean by Muhammad. Okay, because there are versions of the definition of Muhammad that is kind of defendable as somebody that probably exists, but their version of it, I mean the Islamic version of it, I am right now almost convinced that it started by the Umayyad, by Abdul Malik, and it was canonized by the Abbasites. Okay, so it was started. Islam as we know it today started with the Umayyads, was canonized as the scripture, the text, and the hadith was canonized by the Abbasites, and the interpretations as we know it today came from people mostly like Ghazali and Ibn Taymiyyah and other people like that, right? But let's look at this. We're gonna use this video just to show you guys that we're not gonna be biased. We're using a video by this channel which is I like a lot, Al Muqaddama, and the guy is a Muslim. The guy who reviews its information is a Muslim. Okay, so let's anything. Videos. Yeah, he does good videos.
Well,
I think
they're very well edited.
Yeah. The audio, his earlier videos, the audio, the music was too loud, but I think he made it better in these videos. Anything in the live chat that I need to highlight?
No.
Maybe the Umayyads created this imaginary figure.
We're gonna get into it.
I mean, have you guys been listening? Anyways, let's play. Okay, I love the fact that he puts the timeline here. So this is when Muhammad died, and I don't know what this is supposed to be.
Common Era. No, you mean the timeline? No, yeah, we'll find out.
I don't know what this time is, but this is when Muhammad died.
Almost 2 billion people around the world call themselves adherents to the faith of Islam. Prophet Muhammad, as a result, is one of the most influential figures in history. Although, how do we know that he actually existed, and how much do we actually know about his life? I mean, all the people from
again, reminder, Muhammad, not only they're blocking, this is an Islamic channel because not only Muhammad's face was blocked, but even Gabriel's, the angel Gabriel's face is also, he's even too holy for his face to be shown.
His time are dead, right?
I really like how the Gabriel's wings look so much cooler as an angel.
Right.
Than
okay. Silva is saying how come my membership is not showing? Silva, where have you been? We have been demonetized. That's why. Don't touch your memberships. Leave it like that. Again, for people who don't know that we have been demonetized, we're gonna do our live streams on my personal channel going forward. Link in the description. So yes, hi Silva. By the way, sorry, I'm attacking Silva. I'm attacking our former members.
So hot. I'm like, why are you yelling at him? Everyone's not here all the time. This is why I'm the CEO, you guys, because I have to teach this man how to freaking act.
I attack our own supporters all the time. I have no patience.
Literally, it's insane.
This video is sponsored by Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a streaming service that
Skip
hosts.
forward a little bit. I don't want to watch this ad.
Okay, but I just want to know. I'm gonna do a public service announcement, guys. Don't pay for stuff if you're not gonna use them. Okay.
3,000
Oh my
documentaries.
god.
Like these documentaries, guys. YouTube. I mean, I love this channel and all, but YouTube, the things that you could, I think Audible, get Audible for your
my
content, and
God.
yeah, but for any other content, YouTube is enough.
In various genres, from history to science, as well as travel and
No.
art. They're adding new shows all the time, which you can enjoy on all
Okay, unless you enjoy the imagery. Hold on, let me go forward.
of that. I would strongly recommend their documentary, Marketing the Messiah, which is kind of relevant to this video.
No, I recommend reading a book by Bart Ehrman on Audible.
And documents how Christianity came to become what it is.
And I'm not even getting
how
paid
Jesus
for my
came to have the
recommendation.
high status he
So-
enjoys today among the 2.2 billion Christians in the
Oh my
world.
god.
Another docuseries
Hey.
the most vital take advantage of a.
These are ads.
Now, before
Okay,
I
we get started here.
Shuvo is saying from now on, Susanna is CEO and HR. I've been HR.
Nothing has changed. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
We call that Tuesday.
Okay.
Now, before I start this video, I'd like to say that I am Muslim. And for me to be objective, I've had to struggle with reconciling my faith with my work.
Aww, that's very sweet, you know. Lucy is like, he's trying to give us proper information without letting his religion get in the way. That's very sweet. I admire this person.
I don't
And
think
he's honest about it.
Yeah.
I don't think a liberal approach to Islam has emerged in a concrete form the way that it has in Christianity or Judaism. As a result, being a liberal Muslim is kind of difficult. For me, now there are two versions of Prophet Muhammad. One is Muhammad, the Prophet of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, whom I believe in and try to follow to the best of my ability. He was the best of humanity, after all. Second is Muhammad, the historical subject, who is not that much different than the leaders of any other movement, religious or otherwise. He was a human being and very much a product of his time and environment.
Did you just see what happened?
He's
He did-
compartmentalizing.
He's putting it into the. He's realizing that he can't justify the real Muhammad. He's making two Muhammads in his head. That is kind of adorable. I did this with God when I was losing faith in God. I realized that the historical God is a man-made concept, and I wasn't ready to let go of God. So I made my own God, my own personal God that I knew was my own my own made-up God, right? That I still needed as a friend, right? And look what he was showing. I think because he's a history buff, he knows that he can't defend Muhammad both as a character, as someone to follow, the historical Muhammad, and even somebody that he could be sure that even existed. So he's like, you know what? I have two Muhammads. And look at the imagery that he's using. One of them is the Sahaba and the Prophet and Muhammad with the flaming, and he's being celebrated, and he's like holy, and you have Gabriel coming out and giving him the Quran. I think this is Bilal. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy guess.
He was the best of humanity.
And this Muhammad, this is the best of humanity, right?
Yeah.
And then the actual Muhammad.
Second is Muhammad.
Look, this is the Muhammad that was killing the Jews, the Banu Qurayza, and like, you know, this is also part of.
Yeah. That's literally what that is.
Yeah, this is Muhammad watching his companions killing Jewish people right in front of him, like for him, right? Because he said, like, anyways, he said, "Allah."
Behind their back.
Yeah, look, this is like a war against humanity. These are collective punishment against Jewish people. And he's like, this is another Muhammad. I have two Muhammads in my head now. I only accept this Muhammad. You know what? I know that you guys can be like, why can't he just be a non-Muslim? But I admire the fact that he is not dismissing the things that he has a problem with, right? He's like, he's conflicted, and this is his way of dealing with it, right? He wants to remain a Muslim. He doesn't want to give up on Muhammad right now. And he might become he might or he might not leave Islam one day, but because he's a history buff and because he's looking at things objectively, instead of denying the reality, this is copium. This is how he's coping with it.
Copium. Well, I mean, it's just cognitive dissonance. Bubble is here. Hi, Bubble. I'm saying Bilal is every Muslim's. I have a black friend.
That's so true. That is so true. That is so true.
God, you crack me up.
Okay. All right, let's continue.
After all. Second is Muhammad, the historical subject, who is not that much different than the leaders of any other movement, religious or otherwise. He was a human being and very much a product of his time and environment. Now, I know people in the comments might call me munafiq, mulhid, murtad, or any other creative M words.
So he's saying that Muslims will probably, like, based on what he said, he's going to be takfired by his Muslim community, right? He's like, I know a lot of Muslims would not like what I just said.
He will be called a hypocrite who is actively trying to subjugate, not subjugate, to confuse, to cause fitna, to cause confusion and doubt under the guise of still being a Muslim. That's worse.
Yes. Oh, Aditya is saying fellow infidel. Yes, he's one of us. No, but like the things that he's going to be called, let's look at the list.
A product of his time and environment.
Hold on.
Now, I know people in the comments might call me munafiq.
Munafiq, like what you said, a hypocrite. People pretending to be Muslim, but they're not really Muslim. Mulhid means like... Murtad is apostate. Mulhid is like atheist, like us, like non-religious, right? So a mulhid is like us, right? Murtad is specifically more me. You're a mulhid, I'm a murtad. Murtad is the worst thing that they could call an apostate.
That's funny. I thought that mulhid was more specific to be an apostate from Islam. Okay.
Murtad is apostate. Mulhid is maybe... Like,
I just learned something today. Skeptic.
You already know. The fact that you even know these words is amazing. Oh, mulhid is heretic or atheist. Yes. So I'm a mulhid and a murtad. You're just a mulhid.
I know that someone who converts to Islam and then apostatized is called a murtad milli.
Oh. Wait, what? I didn't know that. What? Say that again?
Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But someone who is a convert or a revert, check yourself. So they revert and then they leave Islam. They're called a murtad milli.
Okay. I learned something new from you now. That's amazing. I didn't know that. How do you know these things? It's not... Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, technically, but Bish is saying, aren't we all technically murtad since we were all technically born Muslim?
We are all ex-Muslim. We are all
yes, you're all ex-Muslim. Okay. We're having too much fun with this.
Murtad or any other creative M words, but that's just how I've managed to stay objective with my work while adhering to my faith as well.
Oh, well, we appreciate you trying your best to be objective. Really appreciate it.
Especially when you know you're going to get...
When you try to...
Yeah, especially you know that you have to deal with so much crap.
When you try to establish whether a person actually existed or not, the best evidence is physical and archaeological. Unfortunately, we don't have much luck in that field. I mean, there are many relics floating around, like his shirt and his staff, and there are museums that claim to have hair from his beard, but really, there isn't a way to verify it without doing things that would be considered very disrespectful. The first mention of Muhammad in the archaeological record comes from around 691 in the shape...
Wait, pause? What would be those things that would be considered very disrespectful? Taking them for a lab analysis?
I guess so. That like just touching it is holy, so why would you even touch it? Like maybe that's an excuse, because wouldn't it be also like very holy if you could prove that this is like the hair is from that, like do a DNA test on it? Like wouldn't that be saving Islam from all the people like us who are doubting it?
But at the same time, maybe not, because it would be subscribing to their standards. It would be subscribing to their regime of truth, so to speak, if I'm putting on my postmodernist hat. It would be subscribing to saying your method of determining what is true instead of accepting this holy truth, this dogma is.
Well, there's no Islamic way to check if a hair is. Just bring Muslim carbon.
But the fact that you're questioning it and testing it to see if it's true itself is heretical.
No, it's not. There's nowhere in the hadith or the sunnah or the Quran. Wait, let me finish saying something before. So, because you know what I'm going to say, that doesn't mean people know what I'm going to say. There's nowhere that says that. There's no hadith that says if anybody says that this is the hair of Muhammad, thou shall not do DNA testing or carbon. What is it called? Carbon date testing.
Dating.
What is it? Dating on it. Carbon dating on it, and there's nothing that prohibits that. So I don't know.
I guess, yeah. I mean, not from a scriptural sense. Not scripturally, that's heretical. But I would think, maybe this is me putting on a Christian lens, but it's from that lens to try to use our man-made means of knowledge to try to validate this ineffable, supreme truth, religious dogma. Like culturally, that's very heretical because you're not. That's not faith.
Okay, but that's not true because they do that with Jerusalem, with including the Islamic sections, right? But they don't do that with Mecca. Okay. So here's the thing. I think this is calling off selective.
Why does Quds get all the attention?
Yeah, no, because there's a selective outrage over the fear of what could be revealed that might disprove Islamic history, right? So, like, for example, when the Yemeni government allowed foreigners to come and investigate the Sina manuscript, which is the earliest, records of the Quran, right? Some of the earliest ones, it showed that the Quran has been manipulated and changed throughout history. Like it was one of the most damning evidence, and now they have blocked access to it, right? And this is why some people say that this is the same reason. So here's the thing: we're saying, according to Islamic history, Muhammad was born here and then he traveled to Medina, right, or Yathrib. But now it seems that we're looking at all the historical records, and Mecca is supposed to be a very significant trading city at that time, but there was no reference to Mecca either by the Persians or by the Romans. And guess what? These people recorded the traders, they were obsessed with recording stuff. They were obsessed with recording cities and their trade routes and everything. And there's no mention of Mecca until years after Islam. Okay, so this city wasn't even there. And if you look at the people who tried to do archaeological analysis on Mecca, was supposed to be a city that existed since Adam, if not Abraham, they couldn't find anything that you would find in an ancient city. Like nothing that dates Mecca to like the time that Muslims claim it to be, right? Like even small villages that we have records of it in history. When archaeologists go dig there, they found like a whole bunch of evidence of people settling here, trading here, buying stuff here, doing war here. They leave a crap ton of evidence, and they can't find none of that here. And guess what? They don't even let, like right now, the people in Mecca, they're like cementing over everything. They're cementing over where Muhammad supposed to have lived. There's no way to now get access to all of that. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose to deny access to them, or if it's just like they're just building stuff. But there's nothing in Mecca that any archaeologists have been able to find, the same way that Jerusalem has been. Like when we say, like, for example, I don't know, this temple, that temple in Jerusalem, some of it we know it's made up, some of it is historical, because scholars and archaeologists, they have had access to Jerusalem for so many, it has been studied for so long, and everybody has access to it. And some of it, is some of it is in line with like some biblical stories, but a lot of it is not. But we know that because it has been proven. But we're only starting this with Islam. So anyways, let's continue.
Of an inscription.
Oh, so here's another interesting thing, right? So the first Okay, so the first archaeological evidence for the Muhammad's name was 691, right?
691,
So 691, and
the shape of an
on the Dome of the Rock. I don't know if he's going to say it, but it was also at this year that Muhammad's name was ever found on a coin. So from 632 to 691, there was no inscription with Muhammad's name on it, like no coinage and no archaeological evidence. And so here's the thing. We don't know if Muhammad was real. We don't know if Ali, Omar, Abu Bakr, and Osman was real. I think the first significant character that we know was historical, that is being referred to in Islamic history, is Muawiyah, which is the first Umayyad Khalif. And he reigned from 661 to 680, and he issued coins. Okay, he issued coins, and there are coins that Muawiyah issued in 660s and 670s. And so that mentioned, how many times do you think it mentioned Muhammad? 0. No mention of Muhammad. No mention of Muhammad, even though we had the Umayyad dynasty, right, in the 660s and from 661 all the way to 691, right? So that's 20 years of coinage with no reference to Muhammad or Islam, for that matter. Like, it's as if, like, it's almost as if they forgot that their prophet, is Muhammad, right? And not only Umayyad coinages didn't have any mention of Muhammad on it, they had crosses on them. Did you know that?
Well, only because you talked about it before.
Oh my God. You guys are... Guys, they were his enemies. Why will they? You guys are completely... Okay, if you don't know what you're talking about, Muawiyah, this is his enemies. You're talking about Muawiyah's father? Are you talking about like Abu Sufyan time, before Islam was dominating over the region? Guys, Muawiyah was supposed to be a Muslim. He was a Khalif. What are you guys talking about? This is the beginning of the Umayyad dynasty, the first Islamic empire. You're saying that Muawiyah was Muhammad's enemy? Is that what you're saying? Oh my God, you guys are... Anyways, I don't know what you guys say. Maybe I should just ignore the live chat. So the first archaeological evidence in 691, both on coinage and on
the
Dome of the Rock, which was made by Abdul Malik. What was he? Like, he was the Umayyad Khalifa, I think. What number was he? Abdul Malik was number 4 or 5. I forgot. But yeah, he was like... Abdul Malik is the guy that is probably responsible for the invention of Islam. Him and his governor, Ibn Hajjaj. Wait, Hajjaj, Ibn Hajjaj, is that right? Hajjaj, yeah, I think so.
Where he's called Muhammad, the Prophet of Allah, and it is actually available for anyone to see. The Dome of the Rock was built by a Muslim caliph, Abdul Malik, so it really isn't the most reliable and unbiased source if you're trying to determine whether or not Muhammad existed. Secondly, you have to look at literary evidence. There's the Quran, but it's not a good historical source.
But also the earliest... Okay, so the Quran is actually makes the situation more complicated, because they have found... if you do carbon dating in the Quran to see whether it predates back to Muhammad's date, actually, you have Qurans that is from Muhammad's day, and unfortunately for Muslims, you have Qurans that predates Muhammad's birthday. So that's not good.
Even if we can move past the fact that it's a religious book,
and none of them... Okay, so here's the thing. The Quran mentions the word Muhammad 4 times, okay? But only one of those 4 times is clearly referring to the prophet of Arabs. the 3 other times it could be read as an adjective of some, which means the praised one, and it could be referring to anybody. It could be referring to because the competing revisionist theory right now is that this was a Christian text written in Syriac without the dialectic marks here. You see these dots and the these a, o, and all that, right? And which was the language of the Christians back then, and because Arabic then at that time was at its infancy, and these dialectic marks was added later, and it was added with an Islamic mindset. So if you remove these dialectic marks and re-add them while reading the Quran in a Syriac format rather than a Arabic format, then you could re-add them, and this whole Quran will look a lot more like a Christian text rather than an Arabic text, rather than an Islamic text. And also, none of the mentions of Muhammad in the Quran, none of the Qurans that were found that you could date to the time of Muhammad had the mention of Muhammad on them, right? So even if you could find parchments of the Quran, they don't prove the existence of Muhammad. Given that it seems like the Quran predates Muhammad as something that was a Christian text, a certain sect of Christianity in around that region at the time, north of what we consider now Saudi Arabia. So this doesn't prove the existence of Muhammad. This might be just showing a branch of Christianity that didn't consider Jesus to be God, didn't consider Jesus to be the Son of God, that came out of Roman, like it was heretical considered to other Christians that came and influenced the Arabs and at that time, that eventually evolved into Islam, right? This might be that, like, just because you could find the Quran from around that time doesn't prove the existence of Muhammad.
History book, it still tells us remarkably little about Muhammad. Out of all the characters mentioned in the Quran, Muhammad is one of the ones it talks the least about.
Yeah, so somebody is saying that in the live chat that the text on the Dome of the Rock. Oh yeah, actually this is a very good point. The text on the Dome of the Rock, okay, where was this? Is actually very problematic, because you could see that the text inside, right? There are multiple layers to Dome of the Rock. But if you actually look at the text inside, you can see there are supposed to be Quranic verses, but they don't match the Quran. Do you know what I mean? Like they are, you can see, like, okay, this is supposed to be a Quran. Like they are like the Quranic verses inside the Dome of the Rock. But if you pick up the Quran and you'd like try to follow it, you can see like, wait, this is not exactly the same, right? The orders are different. The words are sometimes different. And it actually, instead of being supporting of Islam dating to 691, it is actually damning, because it suggests that in 629, Islam was still evolving, right? Even in the Muhammad in the Dome of the Rock, it's not one of those Muhammads that like clearly refers to the Prophet of Islam. That Muhammad in the Dome of the Rock is still one of those Muhammads that could be just an adjective, the praised one, which could be even referring to Jesus, not even to Muhammad, right? Like even at this time when Muhammad was first time mentioned, this reference at this time might still be Islam in a phase where it's still separating for this Christian mindset. Like so here's, for the people who haven't watched this before. So the competing theory right now, the revisionist theory, which seems to be very likely in my opinion, but I'm not a scholar, so I'm just giving you all sides, and you guys could go do your own research. Is that instead of the common narrative that everybody believed for a long time, that Islam started in Arabia, and then after these Arabs became Muslim, they started coming out of Arabia and invading the surrounding nations, and then they became an empire. The competing narrative right now is that no, these were Arabs that came out of that region. They started invading surrounding. They took Jerusalem. They then attacked Byzantine. They took North Africa. They took down the Persian Empire. These two empires were weak because of both pandemics and also years of war between the Persian and the Byzantine Empire. So it was really easy for these nomads to be able to take them down and build an empire. And after they built an empire, they started for branding purposes. They started creating their own unique identity, and a unique identity is branded with a religion. Like if you look at the Persian Empire, their branding was Zoroastrianism. If you look at the Byzantine Empire, their branding was Christianity. These people were a new empire, and they needed a distinct new identity that sets them apart from these other people, and that's why they started Islam. And if you look at, like, for example, the Dome of the Rock, the way, like, this is the birth of Islam, not Kaaba, not Muhammad. This Dome of the Rock, this is the birth of Islam. And it was built right in front, here it is. You see this other dome? You know what this church is? Is that what that church is? The Church of Holy Sepulchre? How do you say it? You're a Catholic. Church of Holy Sepulchre? I never know how to say it.
I don't know what you're saying.
The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, right? You see that in the... Yes, that's how you say it. I think that's it. Yeah, this is it. Is this the dome for the... Yes. I'm so glad that that's actually in the background. Guys, look at this. You see these two domes? This dome was built by Abdul Malik because Jerusalem was the place where all these religions were doing their marketing and branding. This Jerusalem was the center of these Abrahamic branding. You had Christianity and you had Judaism, and they were all branding each other. And now you see a birth of a new religion, which is Islam, and they wanted to do a branding. This is where you were selling your religion, right? This is where Abdul Malik was selling a new religion. And to make sure that the people understand that this is not a joke religion, you need to take this religion seriously. This dome was being built with it looks very, like, if based on archaeologists, this looks a lot very Christian. It has a very Christian design, but is higher. You see this? And it's bigger. So it was a competition. It was a branding competition that was happening here. Right? Anyway.
They say size doesn't matter.
If you're trying to determine whether or not Muhammad existed. Secondly, you have to look at literary evidence. There's the Quran, but it's not a good historical source. Even if we can move past the fact that it's a religious book, not a history book, it still tells us remarkably little about Muhammad. Out of all the characters mentioned in the Quran, Muhammad is one of the ones it talks the least about. Events from Muhammad's life are referenced but never narrated. The best literary evidence for his existence would be something that is chronologically close to his life and written by someone who wasn't a Muslim. So, do we have anything like that?
Nope.
Yes.
Wait.
The first...
What? Okay, we have something that was written about Muhammad at his lifetime, during his lifetime, by non-Muslims? Oh, close to his time. At his time? Hold on, let me see.
But never narrated. The best literary evidence for his existence would be something that is chronologically close to his life.
Close to his life, okay. Not at his life, okay,
and
fine.
Written by someone who wasn't a Muslim. So, do we have anything like that? Yes, we do. The first mention of prophet among the Arabs comes only 2 years after the commonly accepted year of his death. A document composed in North Africa in 634, named Doctrina Jacobi, mentions it.
This is the main proof that people have, right? So we have Muhammad dying in 632, and we have the first mention of Muhammad in 630s or 632, apparently, according to this guy. I only have it as 630s here. And it says Doctrine of Jacobi. It was a Christian document. It's published. Okay, so here's the thing with this document, okay? It doesn't say Muhammad. It says an Arabian prophet armed with a sword. Okay, and it doesn't really mention where. Okay, so this document at 634, according to this, what I have is 630s. According to what he's saying, 2 years after Muhammad's death. So according to him, it's 634. I don't know where he's getting 634, but it's close enough, right? So this is the first time you see a reference to a dude that led the Arabs, and it was supposed to be a prophet, and he was like a war prophet, right? But again, this is why at the beginning of the video I mentioned that first of all, so he thinks he's saying this is a good document because unlike the Quran, this is by a non-Muslim. This is he's right. This is a Christian document. But the Quran, again, is not even the Quran, which is supposed to be a Muslim document, doesn't have anything with reference to Muhammad as the prophet of Muslims that could be dated to the time of the prophet himself, right? And all the references to the prophet that we know is to the prophet of Islam in the Quran, all the Qurans that we have from that time don't mention the Prophet Muhammad, right? Only the later texts mention Prophet Muhammad. So this is not just the earliest non-Christian, non-Muslim reference to this prophet. It's the earliest overall, at all, completely, right? But it doesn't mention Muhammad.
The main purpose of the document is not to talk about the Arabs, though. Apparently, the Muslims killed a Byzantine official, and that's the context of the mention of the Arab prophet. You can pause.
See, it says Arab prophet. Exactly. It doesn't say Muhammad.
And read the whole passage if you want, but I'll just read what's relevant here. I, having arrived at Sycamina, stopped by a certain old man, well versed in the scriptures, and I said to him, "What can you tell me about the prophet who has appeared with the Saracens?" He replied, groaning deeply, "He is false, for prophets do not come armed with a sword."
There we go.
But the first mention...
Did you hear Muhammad?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But
so this is it.
He's got some spicy takes.
Yeah. He has some spicy takes. By the way, this document is very good to show there was a dude. Okay? It doesn't say anything, like it doesn't give any validity to whether or not any of the hadiths about the life of Muhammad was true or not. It doesn't, but correct? It doesn't mention anything. It doesn't mention Islam. It doesn't mention the Quran. But it is a very good document to show there seems to be been a person that was leading the Arabs and was allegedly a prophet. It's actually a better document because it's speaking negatively of him. It would have been the fact that it's speaking negatively of him makes it a better document to prove his existence somewhat, right?
Because is it more believable?
Yeah, because it's not propaganda.
Yeah.
It's not propaganda for Islam.
But what if it's propaganda against Islam?
Yeah, but we wouldn't make propaganda against something that wasn't an issue. You know what I mean? Like there must have been something. Like there must have this is 634.
Some dude was going around with a sword. Sounds like a problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this was a headache for these Christians at that time. Like only 2 years after Muhammad's death, people were mentioning like somebody like these Arab. Who are they following? Oh, they were following this prophet,
false prophet.
warrior. Yeah, and yeah, they call them a false prophet because they're like, yeah, this is the first. Okay, these are people with an Abrahamic mindset, right? I love that. By the way, thank you to all the Hindus for introducing this phrase to us. We're using it all the time.
The vocabulary we've gained.
Yes, thank you for that.
Abrahamic mindset, internal matter.
But I don't know. Like I think a lot for them, it's weird for a prophet to be like leading an army. But why is it weird? Wasn't David like take down Goliath? So like, what was he supposed to like? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the story of David and Goliath is a bit different. I mean, David was a king. He did have a kingdom and go to war.
Yeah, but he was a prophet as well. So
yeah,
I mean, so did Muhammad allegedly.
And
like, so I don't.
Solomon was a prophet too, right?
Yeah. No, but did Solomon lead in wars? I don't remember that part.
I don't know, but I mean, if you're a king, you're going to have some military presence.
Yeah, but you might be just sitting on your throne and just be like, go attack. But David, at least we know David.
Oh,
was,
you mean actually be a warrior?
Yeah. Because look at the end of
Appeared
this.
with a
The end of the text. It says like, where is it? Arm. Oh, he is false, for prophets do not come armed with a sword. But yeah, I mean, according to Christians and Jews, other prophets were engaged in war. So I don't know where this is. But yeah, but anyways, this is, whether you agree with this document or not, that's a separate issue. This is a historical document. Like, we have this document, okay? So this is the best right now, the most solid document that we have that is dated, that people know that it exists and refers to this allegedly false prophet with a sword, but no mention of Muhammad, no mention of Islam, and no mention of the Quran.
And I said to him, what can you tell me about the prophet who has appeared with the Saracens?
I have the second
He
reference coming
replied,
soon.
groaning deeply, he is false, for prophets do not come armed with a sword. But the first mention of the
Oh,
name...
wait, no, go back a second. I want to read the rest of it. It's an interesting last sentence. So I, Abraham, inquired and heard from those who had met with him that there was no truth to be found in the so-called prophet, only the shedding of men's blood.
Hey, do you want to read the whole thing? This document is the first time Muhammad is ever referenced that we have documented in the history. Do you want to read the whole thing?
Sure.
Okay.
When the candidatus was killed by the Saracens,
Saracens means Arabs.
I was at
somewhere.
Caesarea, and I set off by boat to Sycamina. Okay. People were saying the candidatus has been killed, and we Jews were overjoyed. And they were saying that the prophet had appeared coming with the Saracens, and that he was proclaiming the advent of the anointed one, the Christ who was to come. I, having arrived at Sycamina, stopped by a certain old man well versed in the scriptures, and I said to him, what can you tell me about the prophet who has appeared with the Saracens? He replied, groaning deeply, he is false, for the prophets do not come armed with the sword. Truly, they are works of anarchy being committed today. I fear that the first Christ to come, whom the Christians worships, was the one sent by God, and we instead are preparing to receive the Antichrist.
Like, hey,
Indeed.
Like the Jews, like maybe the Christians were, maybe that was the Christ, and now this is the Antichrist. So the first document that we had, the first historical document that refers to the prophet of Arabs, not the Muslims. The first document refers to him as the Antichrist.
Yeah,
wow,
potential Antichrist. Islamophobia.
The first document referring to the prophet of Islam is an Islamophobic document.
Oh my god. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah, and we are instead preparing to receive the Antichrist. Indeed, Isaiah said that the Jews would retain a perverted and hardened heart until all the earth should be devastated. But you go, Master Abraham, and find out about the prophet who has appeared. So I, Abraham, inquired and heard from those who had met with him that there was no truth to be found in the so-called prophet, only the shedding of men's blood. He said also that he has the keys to paradise, which is incredible.
Oh yeah, actually, this is a very important thing. Whoever this Arab prophet warrior king was, whether Muhammad or not, the first document referring to it, first of all, says like, we went and looked and we think this is like all, we didn't even find proof for him. We just found men's blood. Also, they're saying that this guy said that he has the keys to the paradise. Something not ever mentioned in the Quran or hadith. So this is like not a very Islam, like according to the Islam today, this guy had beliefs that Islam today doesn't have. So it might have had different beliefs that is being referred to in, it might have like, maybe that dude, let's say Muhammad-ish guy would not recognize Islam as was canonized by the Abbasides and Abdul Malik before him.
You think this has anything to do with Saint Peter? So according to Catholic tradition, Saint Peter has the keys to heaven.
Yeah, this is okay. So this sounds very Christian, more Christian than Islamic.
Like that, if you guys see in documents of the Vatican, on the Vatican's flag, there are keys. Those are Saint Peter's keys to heaven.
Right.
Fascinating.
Groaning deeply, he is false, for prophets do not come armed with a sword. But the first mention of the name Muhammad in non-Islamic sources comes from the Chronicle of 640 by Thomas the Presbyter.
Wait, I need to see what notes I have for this guy. Thomas. Yes, 662. Wait, what is this? In the year 630? Why do I have 662? No, that's not it. Hold on, 1 second. 634? Where's my notes to this? Oh no, it's on this page. Oh yeah, 640s. I have 640s. He has 634. I don't know why we have different dates. Thomas, a Christian priest, mentions a battle. Yeah, by the way, guys, I have this video is more for it. I am using my notes that I wrote in the book. This book, which is very much on the side of the revisionist. Okay, I'm not saying this is true. I'm just like using the for arguments and the against arguments. Okay, this book is, by the way, I find this book missing because I don't know why. Maybe we'll get to that. But here it says 640. Christian priest mentions a battle between the Byzantine and Tayyid di Meh. Okay, so this is how it's writing it down, right? Because it mentions Muhammad, but without the dialectic marks, it's just MHMT, right? So the way that has been translated is the Arabs of Muhammad. So this is early 640s, and here it says 634, right? So let's see how it's being referred to it in this document.
In the year 634, on Friday, February 4, at the 9th hour, there was a battle between the Romans and the Arabs of Muhammad in Palestine, 12 miles east of Gaza.
Okay, the Arabs of Muhammad. So 634, that's 12. No, wait. 634. Yeah, that's 12 years after when Muhammad allegedly died. Okay. Okay, so and again, so this Muhammad again is Muhammad without the dialectic marks, MHMT, I think, and the Arabs of Muhammad. The problem with this Muhammad, this is the earliest mention of it on a document, not archaeological evidence, but on a document. This Muhammad, if you look at linguistics, they don't know if this is a name here or if it means the praised one, referring to
like an honorific.
Honorific. Yeah, that's a word that I was looking for, right? So the way that this is used, again, we don't know if this is a name or just referring to somebody else, like a title or something like that.
Should I read?
Like you could be like Neo, the chosen one, right? So that might be not your name. Like this Muhammad might not actually be your name. This might have been turned later by Muslims. This might have turned into a name. But go on, what were you saying?
Should I read this document too?
Is it juicy? Sure, let's do it.
In the year wow, my dyslexia. In the year 634, on Friday, the 4th of February, at the 9th hour, there was a battle between the Romans and the Arabs of Muhammad in Palestine, 12 miles east of Gaza. The Romans fled, leaving behind the Parisian burden, whom the Arabs killed. Some patrician beard, I don't know what that word is. Bearden, whom the Arabs killed. Some 4,000 poor villagers of Palestine were killed there. Christians, Jews, and Samaritans. The Arabs ravaged the whole region.
These are not very favorable references either, right? Okay, I think the next one that is coming should be a coin.
there was a battle between the Romans and the Arabs of Muhammad in Palestine, 12 miles east of Gaza. These are practically contemporary sources that prove that a prophet named Muhammad existed in Arabia and his followers invaded Byzantine Greater Syria.
Well, technically not that a prophet named Muhammad.
Right. So no, but it's good that we're hearing the reasons why he thinks it is proves that a prophet named Muhammad existed at that time, like sources contemporary to him. Like we see his side, but I'm also getting arguments from why these are not proof. First of all, because the first source that he showed didn't even refer to him as Muhammad, and the second one that he showed, again, this is after Muhammad's death, by non-Muslims, referring to something that 634 one could have been just, his title rather than a name, right? The way that it's being used, right?
Yeah, like how Adonai just means Lord. It's not actually in the name of God.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the way, even the mentions of Muhammad in the Quran, so even Muslims acknowledge that only one of them is clearly being used as a name, very clearly, right? And he's kind of like right now make it seem like he's ignoring the Quran and just looking at non-Muslim sources to be objective. But referring to the Quran makes it worse because, again, mention of Muhammad even by Islamic sources that is clearly referring to Muhammad as his name comes even later than these earlier sources that we're looking at when it comes to non-Islamic sources, right? But anyways, let's see if he's not going to mention any other sources.
And these aren't the only sources. There are many other such documents as
well.
I
have them.
Since these documents are from
Okay, so okay, so the first time we have Muhammad. So here's the thing, like the difference, the 691 in the Dome of the Rock, it says Muhammad is the servant of God and his messenger. Okay, so now that Muhammad is becoming more, again, it could be is becoming closer to Muhammad in Islam, even though still not 100%, because what the Dome of the Rock was also trying to do at that time, or maybe Dome of the Rock, maybe this was the actual Muhammad that Muslims believe in today, but referring to Muhammad as the servant of God and his messenger that Muhammad might be Jesus, and the reference to him as the servant of God and his messenger might be the argument that sect of Christians were having with trying to separate themselves from the Byzantine Christians in arguing that Jesus was not the Son of God and was not God himself, but was a messenger of God and a servant of God, right? That might have been, because another thing is we have coins. Where's the first coin? Oh yeah, 696. So he's not saying it. The first coins, 696 first coins appears that do feature the image of a sovereign and do not feature the Islamic. So the Shahadat that was first mentioned on a coin in 696. But what was the first coin with Muhammad? There was in 680s there was coins with Yazid, Muawiyah's son, with a cross on them, which is weird. Anyways, let's continue.
And very close to the time that Muhammad is actually supposed to have lived in, historians almost universally accept that Muhammad existed.
So here, historians universally agree that there was a dude that Arabs followed, and he was a leader of them. And after his death, these Arabs managed to create an empire. Okay,
and he seemed to have quite the battle streak in him.
Yes. So that's what historians agree. The fact that his name was Muhammad, that's not what they agree on. The fact that he was born in Mecca, that's not what they agree on. The fact that, the opinion that the hadith and the sunnah by Muslims reflect his life, that's not what scholars agree on. So when you say scholars agree on that this proves Muhammad, it's kind of misleading, because it kind of suggests that that means that they agree that the Muhammads the Muslims say existed. Nothing about the sources that you're mentioning proves his name, his place of birth, his religion. Like that, the Muhammad that we are proving right now, that he's saying that this proves existed, his religion was not Islam. Islam, there's no mention of Islam. This is something that scholars agree in. The word Islam didn't exist at this time, right? There was no reference to Islam and no references to the Quran at this time. So this guy, whoever he was, wasn't even Muslim.
Not all historians, but most do. We have an Armenian document written around 661, which mentions Muhammad by name and talks a bit about his teachings, which no doubt the author learned from the Muslims.
I don't have that one.
So it shows how early Muslims remembered Muhammad's teachings.
Oh yeah, no, I have Armenian bishop. Armenian bishop writes a semi-historical, semi-legendary account of Muhammad, an Arab preacher who taught his people to worship the God of Abraham. Yes, so we know they were Abrahamic. This goes in line. They might have been like a sect of Christian, and who led 12,000 Jews along with Arabs to invade Palestine. Yes, again, nothing about Islam, nothing about the Quran. A leader that led the Arabs to go attack Palestine. Here's the thing: led 12,000 Jews. So this prophet led the Jews as well. This is like not. This is not.
If you might recall, 661 was the year of the assassination of Ali, the Prophet's cousin.
Look at this art. This is a member of the Khawarij. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib. Imam Ali, Ya Ali! And this is he's trying to kill
Ali.
Ya Ali, my dad. He's trying to kill Ali. And these are the angels trying to stop Ali.
And son-in-law. So many companions of the Prophet were actually alive at this time. Although this source
allegedly, we don't know if Ali was a historical figure.
Doesn't go into much detail on the teachings, just the big stuff like no pork, wine, lies, or fornication. So,
look at this dumb comment. Look at this dumb comment.
Oh my god, this guy! I think this guy's a troll. Oh my god! Just don't highlight him. He's a troll. Look at, okay, so here's the thing. This is very interesting. Look at what he's saying. He's like, we don't know much about their beliefs other than what?
This source doesn't go into much detail on the teachings, just the big stuff like no pork, wine.
No pork, wine?
And lies or fornication.
So, mostly Jewish stuff, right?
So, other than the fact that he existed, how much do we know about Prophet Muhammad? There are people...
We don't even know his name. Yeah, so this is... Oh, look at this. Do you know what this is? This is Sahih Bukhari.
Mm-hmm.
Where's my Sahih Bukhari? I have to.
Yours isn't nearly as pretty.
I know. These are expensive.
Wait, this is a question I have. There's no way that all of that can fit into your books.
Well, yeah, because mine is only volume 1. Look at this. It's not the whole thing. This is just a couple of the volumes. It's not all of it.
Believe that almost all
I want to get these, by the way. I want to put them in my
public moments of his career as a prophet are documented. I mean, there are volumes upon volumes of hadiths, which are sayings and actions attributed directly to him. A lot of Muslims believe that the hadith has an almost scientific backing in the way that it's filtered.
Wait.
Oh my god. That's so ridiculous.
So, like the documents that tell you to dip one side of a fly into another to your cup to not get poisoned, that has a scientific backing. Okay.
Okay, no, let me be fair to him. No, he's not saying that it's scientifically proven to work. Like he's saying there's scientifically like backing into being the words of Muhammad. Like the sirah, the chain of narration, like
it's called Isnad, right?
Yes, not the chain of. He's saying that according to Muslims, the chain of narration of this. So for people who don't know, the hadith are the doings and sayings of Muhammad, the main source of Sunnah. which is the way of like how to follow Muhammad's way, how to live your life, what to do, what's right, what's wrong, used to interpret for interpretation of the Quran. Basically, Muhammad is like supposed to be the living Quran. And if you want to know how to live like what the Quran teaches you, you have to go refer to the sayings and doings of Muhammad, and the hadith helps you with that, right? And what the Muslims did is that they collected all the hadiths, and they came up with a way to prove that these were the sayings of Muhammad. And the way that they try to prove it is by give you the chain of narration of like Muhammad told this person was still person, and all the way to the person that is reporting it, right? Or this person saw Muhammad do this. Like even stuff as like this person did this and Muhammad was there and he didn't say stop, so that means Muhammad approved it. Like even slight thing like that, right? Or this person, Muhammad was doing this and this person stood up, so that means when you and Muhammad didn't say that was wrong, so we could say that, and this person saw it, and this person that at this year heard it from that person, and this person heard it from that person. So they have all this chain of narration, and then they look at the chain of narration like, okay, this person was in this chain of narration was reported by this person to be a liar, so this person is not trustworthy, so this chain of narration is not good. Or like this chain of narration is good because all the people in this chain of narration are trustworthy and the chain of narration is not broken. And this hadith has like 3 chain of narrations that leads to this hadith, so this is a very good hadith with couple of chain of narrations, and everybody in this chain of narration is trustworthy, so this is a hadith that is sahih, approved. Definitely the word of Muhammad is as good as the Quran. We won't say it, but we act like it, right? The problem with that is that it's all horse crap. Okay, none of this is true. This is the worst way of authenticating things people said. None of this was collected and canonized for years, for around 200 years after alleged death of Muhammad. It's almost as if nobody wrote down anything about Napoleon until now. Until like, okay, when did Napoleon die? Right, it's 200 years ago. Like, let's say nobody wrote anything about Napoleon, and they start writing about his story today, and they try to authenticate that by going around like, okay, you heard your grandparents tell.
What did your granddaddy tell you?
What did your granddaddy tell you? And your granddaddy told his granddaddy told him, and that guy, all the way back to Napoleon. At the modern time, imagine how accurate your stories about Napoleon would be if you were only starting to write about him now and you had no records other than this person told this person told you that person. Like, this is obviously the weakest form of trying to authenticate some history. Just imagine if I started writing a book about Napoleon and there was no record of him, and when I was just going around trying to ask people about and I was trying to determine people's trustworthiness without even meeting them years after, like decades after they're already dead. It's absolutely idiotic, and it's laughable that Muslims consider this to be scientific in any way. Just to be clear, the first person that tried to write all of this down, his name was Ibn Ishaq, and he died at least 125 years after Muhammad's death, but his writings were not written down. We don't even have Ibn Ishaq's writings, who allegedly was the first person that wrote this down. It was Ibn Hisham who wrote took everything Ibn Ishaq said around 200 years after Muhammad's alleged death, and he himself said that he threw away most of it away. Anyways, never mind. So, wait, was that him? Oh no, other historian. Yeah, okay. Yes, okay. Hold on, let's continue. Let's see what this.
The collection of hadith
was that him that threw stuff away?
Relative authenticity. On the other hand, are people who believe that basically nothing about Prophet.
No, that. Oh, sorry, I was confusing the hadith collectors. Okay, no, this is the biographers, right? So Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham are supposed to be the earliest biographers, and the one that we actually have that was written down is by Ibn Hisham, who's around like 200 years after the alleged date of Muhammad's death. Okay, so the Sirah is the biography, and the Hadith is the collections of sayings and doings of Muhammad.
And hadiths are a total fabrication. After all, the compilation of hadith
that
we have date back to at least the 9th century, 200 years after the death.
Oh, there we go. He's saying it himself.
How much historical truth can really be in them? Now, the first biography.
See, that's pretty good. He's saying that. This is a Muslim. He's saying that. Guys, if you don't believe me, this guy is a Sunni Muslim, and even he is saying that.
The biography of Prophet Muhammad was written by Muhammad ibn Ishaq called Sirat Rasulullah. It was a...
Okay, Ibn Ishaq allegedly is the first person that wrote this Sirah, which Sirah means biography of Muhammad. Okay, Siratul Rasulullah means the biography of the Prophet of Allah. But we don't have Ibn Ishaq's writing. The person that actually copied his writings is Ibn Hisham, which is way later than Ibn Ishaq.
Compilation of different oral traditions about the life of the Prophet. The book didn't survive in its original form, but it has been quoted by many later scholars whose books have survived. These books, primarily by Ibn Hisham,
oh, there we go, he's saying it,
are the primary source of the traditional narrative of Muhammad's life. However, the Sirat Rasulullah is not a very reliable historical source.
No.
It has been criticized for many errors.
Yes.
The first thing...
Wow, this is a very honest take.
...is that Sirat Rasulullah was written at the very least 100 years after the Prophet's death.
125.
Ibn Hisham and Al-Tabari come even later. Ibn Ishaq died around 770 or so.
So the hadith, okay, so let's not confuse them. The hadith was written 200 years after Muhammad's death, and the Sirah, the one that we have by Ibn Hisham, those were also written around 200 years after Muhammad's death.
The reign of Al-Mansur, the second Abbasid.
So this is the Abbasid period, okay? So remember, the Abbasids came after the Umayyads, right? And the Abbasids did the Hadith collection and the Sirah collection. They are the people who canonized Islam. Ibn Ishaq was during the Umayyads period. Right? Am I correct? I think I'm correct. Yes. Ibn Hisham was, I think, during the Abbasid period. So you have to understand that the Abbasids were competing against the Umayyads, who they destroyed and replaced before them. So whatever the Umayyads assumed Islam was, the Abbasids would probably not be for it. Their Abbasid version of Islam would have to be a version of Islam that would be in line with their propaganda, that would be promoting their rule and their authority, and against the Umayyad's authority. Some of the reasons why a lot of Umayyad caliphs, like early Umayyad caliphs like Muawiyah and Yazid, might look so bad, it might be an Abbasid propaganda against them, right? Like the fact that in the Sirah and the Hadith, Yazid looks really bad, Muawiyah might sometimes look really bad. It might be because everything that was written and collected during the Umayyad dynasty went through an Abbasid filter. Do you know what I mean, Susie? So it's true that the Umayyads might have invented Islam, but it's also true that the Abbasids might have the final say of what is Islam like. Because remember, both the Hadiths...
It's through their lens.
It's through their lens, because both the Hadiths and the biographies of Muhammad was finalized during Abbasid period, and they had huge motivation on making this an Islam that solidifies their authority and against Umayyad interest. Nothing that was written before the Abbasids survived, and maybe on purpose.
Kill it. In fact, it's said that the biography,
and this is why this is why I told you in the last episode that when these Muslim, when Iranians who want to pretend like Islam was invented by Iranians because Salman the Persian, blah blah blah, I like yeah, whatever, yeah, sure, Iranians did everything, but they might be right for some other reasons, because Abbasids might be the people who actually canonize, like finalize what Islam is like, and the Abbasids were a Persian, made by Persians, right? And you know, they were brought into power by Persians, and they were very influenced by Persian politics and culture.
was actually commissioned by al-Mansur. Hence, the political background of the book is a bit shady. I mean, think about it. It might have been commissioned by the second ruler of a new dynasty that was related...
Oh wait, did he just say what I said? Did he just confirm what I said?
I mean, think about it. It might have been commissioned by the second ruler of a new dynasty that was related to the Prophet, and they had just overthrown a previous dynasty.
Yes.
It is generally believed among historians that at the bloody foundation of a new dynasty, history is usually one of the things that suffer, as it is often rewritten.
Hey, look, guys, I'm not even saying this. A Sunni Muslim is agreeing with me on what I'm saying. This guy is very objective. I'm really admiring the fact
because he agrees with me.
He agrees with me, so I like him.
He's objective.
I mean, okay, so the reason why I'm saying he's objective is not to be fair, it's not just because he agrees with me. It's because I'm saying this as an ex-Muslim. Okay, so it's very easy to assume that I'm biased here. Okay, but he's saying that as a Muslim.
No idea how, for instance, the Umayyads thought about the Prophet's life. Although it wouldn't be realistic to completely dismiss the biography either. There are many things that it can tell us about the life of the Prophet. Even though it was written by the great-grandsons of the Prophet's generation, they still had access to many fairly reliable sources. These biographers seem to have quoted people who were the sons of the companions of the Prophet. So they're not 100% fabrication. But then again...
But allegedly, because we don't... Okay, here's the thing. Just like, you know how in Christianity, the Gospels are named after Muhammad's, disciples, even though we know that it wasn't written by them, right? So if you were like fabricating hadith, the best way for you to give us, like, let's say like, okay, you look at the chain of narration and you basically narrow down the chain of narration to this companion of Muhammad that lived at his time, okay? Okay, so you're saying this is proof that this hadith is not made up. Here's a question, Susie. How do you prove that the chain of narration is not made up?
Oh, Habibi.
Right?
So you're telling me that oral tradition is not a great way to keep track of things that happen. Right. You're telling me that cultures who relied on oral tradition maybe didn't do as well.
No, exactly. No, but ask every Muslim who hey, look, we have the chain of narration which proves that hadith is not fake. Ask them this. How do you know the chain of narration is not fake? Because if I was a writer during the Abbasid period and I was writing a hadith and I was trying to make my hadith the best to give it authenticity, do you think, what do you think I would do? I would give it a solid chain of narration. And here's an interesting thing, Susie. Here's a comeback to my point. People say no, Armin, if that is true, then why did they have hadith with a weak chain of narration? If they were fabricating hadith, why didn't every hadith have a strong chain of narration? Why would they make hadith that says oh no, we can't trust this hadith because it has a weak chain of narration? How would you respond to that?
I don't know.
To prove that they would make up hadith with a weak chain of narration, because it would be very suspicious if every hadith had a strong chain of narration.
That's a bit much.
No, come on. Is that a bit much? Would you think, let's say I'm a scholar, hadith historian, right? And I'm yes, let's look at the sayings that are out there to see which one of them have a strong chain of narration. And you came out guess what, guys? All of them, they all have a strong chain of narration. Do you think anybody would take it seriously? Hey, that's a theory. I'm not saying it's true. But at least I'm giving you the counterpoint.
Wouldn't they choose stuff that's more favorable then?
No, wait. So they're saying there's a whole bunch of sayings of Muhammad out there, right? And we are the scholars out there, right? And we wanted to see which one is made up and which one is real. Okay? Obviously, you're not going to go out and say they're all okay. You have to come up with the method, And in fact, here's another reason. Okay, there are hadiths that your caliph that is commissioning you likes, and there are hadiths that the powers that be don't like. So guess what? Those have a weak chain of narration. What I'm saying is not that this is necessarily true. What I'm saying is that the existence of hadith with a weak chain of narration is not by itself proof that this must be a truly academic
of course
endeavor. No.
Your explanation for the weak hadith is a little.
No. Okay. So here's the thing. I'm saying there are other reasons for okay. So let's go by one more. Okay. So I'm saying that the hadith, how do you know you could trust them? Well, Muslims say, well, because they have a strong chain of narration. And I say, well, how do you know the chain of narrations are not made up? And then the Muslims might say, well, they're not made up because if you are just coming up with chain of narration that is supposed to be that you would make up chain of narration that is supposed to make your hadith look authentic, then why would you bother with making up chain of narrations that are weak? Like the fact that we have both chain of narrations that are strong and chain of narrations that are weak shows that there's more to it than just saying, hey, look, chain of narration strong, and I'm just pulling the chain of narration out of my behind. And that proves, the fact that we have both of them proves that there was more to it than that. And I'm like, not really, because the weak chain of narrations could have other motivations behind them. One motivations could be like to show that, yes, we have weak chain of narrations as opposed to strong chain of narrations to give legitimacy to strong chain of narrations. Or the weak chain of narrations, another explanation could be, I'm not saying it is, could be because these are hadiths that you're trying to diss because you don't like. Like there could be like not working for your propaganda, right? So there are sayings like people in the streets, they're telling stories, the character of Muhammad. Guys, when we say they invented Muhammad as we know it today, they didn't invent Muhammad we're not claiming, okay, the revisionists are not claiming that they invented Muhammad out of thin air, right? Muhammad was for example, imagine like Muhammad was at first it was referring to this warrior prophet, and it was his title. Eventually it became a local story that people keep referring to. It was Arab folk, whatever tradition going around, not necessarily a canonized, mature religion. And then when the rulers decided to canonize this religion, because that's what rulers do, both for the sake of strengthening the authority and for the sake of branding, they have to go and look at these local stories and see which one of them works in their favor, which one of them works in the favor of their enemies or the people that they defeated, and which one of them are useless. And you could attribute stronger of chain of narrations to the ones you like, weak chain of narrations to the ones that you don't like. Right? It's easy.
No, but that wasn't my question. Let's say that there's this whole motivation for picking certain hadiths and authenticating them or marking them as more sahih or whatever. Why wouldn't they choose stuff that is a lot more favorable towards Muhammad? Because a lot of hadiths that are regarded as the most authentic are not favorable at all. They don't make them look good. In fact, there's some really weird activity in there.
Yeah, okay. Weird so some of them are weird according to us, but not weird according to the standard of that time. Okay. Also, some of them that even make him look bad, even based on the standard of the time, have other agendas other than making Muhammad look
That's
infallible.
Primarily what I'm referring to. Not stuff that we look back and go, oh, but like stuff that even according to their own standards, their own scripture.
Right. Because for example, let's say Muhammad, here's an example, okay? There's a story of Muhammad like forgetting that there was something in the Quran and thanking somebody who remembered it and being like, oh, okay, yes, that was part of the Quran. Make sure that's in, right? There's a story like that, right? And that makes Muhammad...
You really...
No, I mean, yeah. And that makes Muhammad look really bad. Or like the satanic verses, right? Makes Muhammad can confuse God with the devil, right?
Well,
those make Muhammad look really bad.
The worst part. He committed shirk.
Yes, but first of all, this Muhammad as an infallible being is a more modern understanding, okay, of Muhammad in Islamic theology, modern relatively, okay. Also, this the idea of, you have to understand, Muhammad, for example, a lot of the things that Muhammad made a mistake might have been because of the things that the rulers did as a mistake, and they were justifying their own mistake by showing that even Muhammad did that. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's say, for example, there's parts of the Quran that's missing, or that they didn't add originally. Like, let's say the Abbasids were like adding stuff to the hadith, or the or the Umayyads were adding stuff to the Quran, and people were like, wait a minute, this wasn't there before, and now it's in here. How could this be the revelation of God? By having a story of Muhammad having the same problems, might have like excused them from them having the problem, like something like that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of, imagine like the prophet of God having you having a problem with your caliph at the time, and then you have stories that Muhammad had the same issues, which excuses us to have the same issues today. That could be one explanation, right? Or maybe you saying like, oh my God, this is Satan. Satan, like you say something and then you blame Satan, like you realize that you regretted that. This is a very simplistic version of it, right? So let's say like you said, oh, God said this, and then during your ruling, let's say the Abdul Malik, for example, I'm making up the story, said this God said this, and then 2 years down the line he said like, no, I made a mistake, the Quran, no, the devil made me say it, right? So maybe having a story that the devil even tricked Muhammad would be very convenient story, for example. Again, I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just saying there are ways to justify, because what you're referring to is very interesting, because Susanna, last time I checked, you're not a scholar, but you're making an argument that this is how good you are in the way of thinking, because this is the argument from embarrassments, right? Is an argument that scholars have made. Like they're saying, like if something is too embarrassing for it can't be propaganda, it gives validity to it actually being authentic, right? So that has been used.
Wait, okay, interesting.
Yeah, so that metric has been used to give validity to certain text, both for kings and and leaders and all of that. So what you just did there was something that scholars came up with, and you just came up with that yourself right now on the spot. So that's pretty good. Anyways, let's continue.
Again, at the same time, filtering those sources is left to the author. For example, if the author came across two different versions of an event, he made the choice to include one and not the other. This choice was not always made without bias. As a result of all this, to draw a picture of the life of Muhammad is nearly impossible by modern historical standards. There are just too many problems with the sources, and only if you ignore some of the problems can you get an idea of the events in the life of the Prophet of Islam. Talking about the parts of the biography that are indeed authentic, we come to the so-called Constitution of
Yes, and let me tell you, this is the best right now. This is the best document that you have that might be in favor of Muhammad in according, closer to what Muslims are saying. And I don't know if I forgot or I missed it, but this is the most damning document against the revisionists, the Constitution of Medina, because most scholars do think that this is a legit document, okay? Even though it doesn't mention Muhammad by name, so it's still problematic, right? However, I mean, not the one. I mean, it's still not a document that you have a version of it that is dated back to Muhammad's time that mentions Muhammad. Like you have references to it a lot later that is probably tampered with, which we'll get to why soon. But I don't know if I forgot or I missed it or I was like half asleep, but this book doesn't even mention that. So I don't know why it doesn't mention it. And I'm looking in the index right now, Maybe I forgot. Like, how could you not mention? Look at this. I'm looking at the index. I'm looking at CO. I'm listening Constantine.
Is there anything listed under Medina?
Okay, I'm looking Confession, Constitution, Constantinople. Nope. Okay, looking Medina. It doesn't mention. This is the most important document that this book should have referred to, and it's not referring to. So I'm sensing some bias in this book. See, guys, I'm being very objective with you guys here. Right? I'm even arguing against the revisionist position that I'm taking, because this Constitution of Medina is Medina M-A nope, nothing. Nope. No, nothing. So I have to refer to my own. Let's analyze this together. See if the Constitution of Medina proves the existence of Muhammad. Okay.
It was a document that was written by the Prophet to serve as kind of a treaty between the different peoples in Medina at his arrival there in 622 or 624. Even the most skeptical historians do believe that this document is largely authentic. There are some.
Even Tom Holland, right? Not the Spider-Man guy, the historian one, right? Even him, who's one of the most famous non-propagandist pro-revisionist. So here's the thing, like Tom Holland and I think, what's his name, Dan Gibson, is that his name?
I believe so.
Yeah, Dan Gibson. These are scholars. I mean, Dan Gibson is not a scholar. Tom Holland is the most famous scholar who is not a pro-Christian, anti-Islam propagandist. That is very much in favor of a revisionist view of this history. Okay, so the problem with people like Robert Spencer and other people who are pro-revisionist, I mean, they refer to actual scholars here, like Patricia Crone, for example. Okay, these are real scholars, but this is a summary of their work. They themselves are not to be trusted. Like Robert Spencer, they are Christians and they're extremely anti-Islam. I mean, nothing wrong with being anti-Islam, but you don't want to refer to people who are anti-Islam for.
Well, you might think that when the author runs a site called Jihad Watch,
this
might have a little bit of an agenda.
Yeah. So, guys, I'm saying, like, I'm anti-Islam. That's why you shouldn't refer to, like, you even if I'm not a scholar, but even if I was a scholar, if I have if I was a Christian, a pro-Christian anti-Islam agenda, you shouldn't, even if I was a scholar, you shouldn't be like referring to me, right? Right now, this is the only summary book of the actual scholars out there. That's why I refer to this, but I don't trust it. But there are references to genuine scholars that are in favor of a revisionist view of looking at early Islamic history. And to be fair, the scholars have a point. It's a very unfortunate that the only people that are now writing the text of these scholars and writing it in a form that is consumable by laymen, they're only people that are either Christian or anti-Islamic propagandists. The only person that is a genuine scholar and knows how to write for laymen is Tom Holland, and I suggest you read his book Under the Shadow of a Sword. That is a beautiful book that is like readable by non-scholars. But right now, as we speak, unfortunately, is because for non-anti-Islamic scholars, it's kind of really dangerous for them to touch the subject. People have gone after, Christianity and Judaism, and they examined the early history of them, and they have proven that the biblical account of history have been completely wrong. They haven't done that with Islam because it's as much. I mean, people as brave as Patricia Crone have. She died recently, but she has been living under death threats like ever since she's done that. So, like, it's not something.
Tom Holland too. Tom
Holland as well. Yes, exactly. And I mean, they ask. I sent you a video, Susanna. I think more than a decade ago, of Bart Ehrman. Somebody in the audience asked Bart Ehrman if he's ever going to examine the Quran the same way that he examined the New Testament. And do
he
you remember?
Like whenever I'm ready to stop living or something like that.
No, right? He said whenever I'm tired of living.
Yeah,
that's what he said. Yeah, so it's not easy to go after Islam the same way, especially by scholars, because right, when people like us, we're just online content creators, right? We're not in academia. These people's careers could be threatened. Their funding sources could dry up if they become too controversial.
That might have been edited later, but most of it does in fact come from the Prophet's early days in Medina. I will link Let's Talk Religion's amazing video on the topic in the description. I talked earlier about the year of Muhammad's death being...
Okay, so the problem with the Constitution of Medina, as I understand it, is that even people like Tom Holland himself said that most scholars agree that this is a historical document. I have to do more research on it because this book doesn't refer to it, and about the historicity of it. If you actually look at the document, the original document hasn't survived. Only references to it have survived. So the only way the scholars can decide whether the document is historic is based on the use of the language. Like references to the document is again referred to by Ibn Ishaq, and then which is only survives in Ibn Hisham, which is again around 200 years after the date of when the Constitution was drafted. So how are these scholars saying that they know that this document is historical, even though they don't have the original document? So this becomes a lot of detective work. But even if the document, the Constitution of Medina is a historical document, it's almost certain that it has been tampered with because of the references in it. For example, it mentions Muhammad, like it mentions the Prophet of Islam. And we know, both Islamic and non-Islamic scholars, that Islam was not a word that was used at that time. Right? Like even the Muslims were not, by the earliest Islamic sources, they were referred to as mu'minun. They were not referred to, like Islam was not the name of this religion. Muslims was not the name of the people that follow this religion. So the fact that the documents that we have of this says Islam, the Prophet of Islam mentions Islam, shows that even if the document is historical, it was edited. We have an edited version of the document. It refers to Medina as Medina and not Yathrib. And the name was not named Medina already, like before at the date of the Constitution. So that's another thing to look at.
It's an amazing video on the topic in the description. I talked earlier about the year of Muhammad's death being 632, but that's the generally accepted.
Look at the Sahaba have their heads on fire as well. Oh my, look at this, Sus. This is Muhammad. He's dying, and this man is hugging him. Mm-hmm. And look, the fires around Muhammad's head is going from under. Why is it going this way instead of up? The flames are horizontal instead of vertical.
This isn't realist. You do know that like realism didn't develop in art history until much later.
So when Muhammad lied down, the flames went horizontal?
Oh my gosh. It's not like that.
While there's some debate over it, there's some evidence to support the idea that his death was actually in 634. The difference comes from the correlation between the Islamic Hijrah calendar and the Gregorian calendar. The year of the Hijrah, or migration to Medina, might correlate to the years 622, 623, or 624, 625. And since we know that Muhammad died in the 11th year of the Hijrah, his death could either be 632.
Okay, I don't want to do the rest of it. I think the rest of it is just about whether or not.
Or 634.
Let me just really quickly go through it.
This would sort of change the timeline of early Islam, but at the same time, it means that Muhammad might be the only founder of the Abrahamic religion to have been mentioned in a contemporary source, the aforementioned Doctrina Jacobi. Concerning his death, we do have some evidence that suggests that his death was later than usually believed. There are quite a few sources that actually put Muhammad right in Palestine, leading the invasion that we usually believe happened under Abu Bakr and later Umar.
Oh my God, this is beta what he's saying.
Pause the video to read the whole passage.
All right, so I want to get to the part where he says, no, I don't want to get to this part.
And began to go up to the land of Palestine, plundering, enslaving, and pillaging.
Okay, let's just go through it. I'm not going to pause.
Age and stature of youth began to go up and down from his town of Yathrib to Palestine for the business of buying and selling. He saw the belief in one God and went back down to his tribesmen. He convinced a few, and they became his followers. He led a band of them who were obedient to him and began to go up to the land of Palestine, plundering, enslaving, and pillaging. He returned laden with booty and unharmed. Now, this source is kind of shady as well. This passage is a 13th century reconstruction of an 8th century account of a source that is now lost. We don't know the source of that source either. There are quite a few scholars who believe that Muhammad was right there when Palestine was invaded by the Arabs, but many scholars don't find the evidence convincing. In the end, the historicity of Prophet Muhammad is a complicated subject. Almost 2 billion people around the world believe that they know enough about him to let him guide their daily lives. Any new research into his life and the first century of Islam has to be approached with utmost care. This makes progress a bit slow. Saudi Arabia has only relatively recently allowed archaeological research in their country, and still Mecca, Medina, and other holy sites are off the table. Hopefully,
Mecca is off the table.
In the future, we'll know more about this fascinating
It's unlikely since they're cementing the whole place.
prophet and his followers. This video is part of a collaboration.
I don't know why he didn't show the years, because it's actually pretty. What I would do is to show that Muhammad had more than other prophets like Jesus and Moses. The contemporary reports about him is closer to his death than both Jesus and Moses. So that's a huge argument in favor of Muhammad existing. It's the closest 2 years. When it comes to Jesus, I think it's 15 years. When it comes to Moses, it's like so many years, right? So that's hugely in favor. Like 2 years is very small. But again, that means that we have strong evidence that there was a leader of Arabs that was supposed to be a prophet. But was that Muhammad? Or was that just a leader that was allegedly a prophet, a warrior prophet? Okay. Was his religion Islam? I don't think so. There's no reference to the Quran. There's no reference to Muslims, right? Was his name Muhammad? It doesn't seem like it. Okay. Was he born in Mecca? It doesn't seem like it. Was his religion Abrahamic? Probably. Was his religion anything like we know Islam today? Probably not. Okay. Is there anything that we know about him other than the fact that he was a leader of Arabs and he was a warrior prophet? No. Can any of the hadiths be traced back to him? No. Do we know anything about what he said and what he taught, like his life? No. So this idea of by Muslims that they know, and here's the thing: the fact that a lot of Muslims claim that they know the details, the most of Muhammad's life, actually works against them, right? Because a historical lie, has more details than historical truth, right? When you say the sources that refer to Muhammad, right? When they know exactly how he chewed his food, how he wiped his ass, how he which is true, like how many stones that he had in his hand when he wiped his ass. How did his wife wipe the cum off of his garments? How did he eat? What did he do when a bug fell in his drink? What did he think about wearing gold? What did he think about drinking this? How much salt do you add to your food? Like, if we know that this is not possible to know about someone 200 years after he's allegedly died. So he allegedly died. So when you know that all of this hadith cannot be accurate, then why are you believing the other parts of it? You're like, You can't be, as a historian, look at the same sources that are telling you things about Muhammad that nobody could know this much detail. There's no other person that we know this much. We don't know this much detail about people that live. We don't know this much detail about Kennedy. And we had cameras, and we had like reporters, and we had like, we don't know all these things about them, right? So the fact that we know historically that you can't know this about a person, but then how could you as a historian be responsible enough to be like, well, I'm going to refer to the same sources that say these things, but I'm going to believe the other parts of it that is not this ridiculous. The same sources as a non-Muslim historian, you refer to the same sources that say angels showed up in a battle and and fought on the side of Muhammad against his enemies. You're going to refer to the same sources, and you're going to be like, well, I'm going to ignore that part and believe the other parts that is not miraculous. Well, if you can't believe those things, then that's not a source that you could use as a source of history. Right? So, did Muhammad exist? Again, go back to what we said at the beginning. If by Muhammad you mean the prophet of Muslims who brought Islam and the Quran and the Sunnah and Hadith reflect his life, then I would argue that Muhammad did not exist. If by Muhammad you mean a man that led the Arabs out of a city that was not probably Mecca, with a religion that was probably not Islam, and he thought he was a prophet, and other Arabs thought he was a prophet, yes, I think it's very likely that person existed. What do you think? Do you agree? You don't know.
I don't know. I need to go do my own research.
Yeah, guys, don't believe me. Just do your own research. Okay. All right. Cool. Let me know if you agree with me on what I think. Okay. Again, full disclaimer: I am not a scholar, and you should not believe anything I'm saying. This is just to show you, as a layman, what my research of the work of both scholars and non-scholars who are in favor and against the revisionist view. This is me as a layman. I came to this conclusion. If you believe me because of what I said, you do not know how to do research, because I am not an academic. I am not a scholar. If you like, oh, Armin said so, like, oh yeah, Armin makes good points. If you were convinced just because what I said, then you're not doing your research. I'm just showing you what conclusions I came up with as a layperson based on studying other people's work. Okay, you need to do. If you want to come up with a conclusion, here's the thing: if you don't want to do your own research, I have an easy out for you. You know what that is, Susie?
So I don't know.
Yes, it's easy. It's easy. Just be skeptical. Don't believe me. Either do the research or just say, I don't know. It's not that hard, okay? Nobody's going to think less of you. I mean, if they think less of you, then screw them. Know. Yeah, Susie, see, she said that. Do you think less of Susie for saying she doesn't know? No. So either do the research or say you don't know. It's pretty easy, okay? It's easy and intellectually honest. Win-win. All right, bye. Subscribe to our newsletter. Do it now. Link in the description. You get Blasphemous Art for free. Link in the description.